Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time visiting. This is going to be another video in my Magic of Divination series. So I have some things to talk about today. Namely, what we're going to be talking about is why and how to cleanse your tarot and oracle decks. Now, as with every video on this series, I want to make it really clear I'm sharing with you the things that I find useful or have benefited from over the years when it comes to bringing a bit of magic into my work with cards. That being said, none of these is like a blanket, this is stuff you must do, that you're somehow wrong if you don't do it, or that in any way it's harmful to not do it. I'm in no way saying this is like a necessary thing. This is something that I really benefit from when I feel like it's needed. It's something that brings some of that magic back into my practice. And so for that reason, I really enjoy this kind of thing. So what do I mean when I say cleanse a tarot oracle deck? I'm not talking about physical dirt, although for some people that's a really useful practice to actually take a look at your cards if they've gotten anything on them, any schmutz, to just gently or carefully wipe them down with either a dry cloth, or if it's a glossy, a very, very, very well wrung out, barely damp wipe or cloth, to literally like cleanse them or sanitize them. You can definitely do that kind of thing if the cards will allow you to do those kinds of treatments. So there's a physical cleansing process for sure. But mostly what I'm talking about is an energetic cleansing. And when I say that, what I guess I'm really referring to is if there's anything energetically you feel is clinging to or stuck to your cards that you might not want there. It doesn't have to be bad stuff. It could just be not your stuff. So for some people, anything that's clinging to their cards that is not theirs, aka like somebody else's energy or somebody else's stuff, they might not want on their deck. So they're going to want to sort of clear that out or cleanse that out before they use it for somebody else or for themselves. For me, the two times I might feel like I want to cleanse a deck is if and I'm very loosey-goosey with this, okay? I might want to cleanse a deck if I've received it secondhand and I know I'm going to use it for something really personal, really spiritual, where I really am going to be going to the cards for a very metaphysical purpose. Forgive the motorcycles, it's motorcycle season right now. But so just getting a deck secondhand, I don't always cleanse them. To be honest, if they feel fine, if I feel like I'm not getting anything from them that bugs me, I might not. But in use, I have a couple quick and dirty cleansing things that I do every time I use a deck, particularly for somebody else. So my decks kind of get cleansed in use anyways, but I very rarely get a deck in and I'm like, oh, ew, I've got to clean something off of it, even if it's secondhand. Typically, I feel pretty decent, good energy from decks that come to me secondhand. But if I'm bringing in a deck and it's secondhand, or if I'm just bringing in a deck for a very specific, more personal or deep purpose, I often in those cases will feel like I want to cleanse a deck. The other time I might want to cleanse a deck is if I have been using it for myself or for somebody else and it's gotten some intensity attached to it. So a deck that I've used for really intense work for myself, that could be like really intense shadow work, healing work, grief work, trauma work, anything where I feel like the energy could have a sticky quality to it, could actually cling in a way that could affect future readings. And again, this is all based on personal belief. If you don't believe in the movement of energy, or if energy can kind of attach itself to things, then none of this might even make sense for you. But some of it might be fun to try just to see if it brings some of that ritual, magical specialness into your reading. So you don't have to believe in the qualities of energy to do some of the things that I'm going to demonstrate for you today. But these are some of the reasons I might do it. Is to sort of cleanse some of the clingy, sticky energy off of a deck that's been used for intensity, or to cleanse something that has come into me that I have planned for some specific purposes. And then the third reason that I cleanse decks, and this I do constantly, is whenever I use a deck to read for somebody else, period ever, I always cleanse it. Again, quick and dirty, really simple, before I read for even another question for the same person. But I want to cleanse that reading from that deck to kind of reset it and bring it back to baseline, so to speak, so that it's not dragging anything along with it that I don't want there. So I'm going to flip us around and show you some of my favorite cleansing methods. Actually, all the ones that I think I've used or could think of in this moment. There's definitely going to be more than what I'm showing you, but I'm going to show you the methods that I've used and talk about the benefits and such of each. So let's flip the camera around and I will show you my workspace and we're gonna get into all the fun witchy stuff. Okay, so let me talk you through the two decks that I have here, and then we're gonna actually cleanse these. I'm gonna cleanse these with you on camera. So the first deck I have here is actually the Celtic Wisdom Tarot. This was an eBay purchase. This is an out of print deck. That is what the backings look like. Mine is still in order, and this is a deck that I got to use for some Ancestry of Place work. I want to do some deep study with this. This is very much a personal deck for me. It is not a deck I plan to use for others. This is something that I just really want to work with for my own benefit, right? So this is a deck that it came to me secondhand for starters, but also it's a deck that I want to use for like healing work, for ancestral work, possibly for looking into sort of like long life cycle kind of healing and trauma work. I don't know yet, but I want to really give this a good, such a beautiful card. Anyways, she's using a drop spindle, which I did for a little while. Anyways, okay, I want to give this one a really good starting point. So this is that situation that I mentioned where the decks come in, it's new to me. I haven't used it for anything yet. It's planned for some deep personal work, and it came to me secondhand. So there's some good reasons for me to want to cleanse the Celtic Wisdom Tarot. The other deck that I have here for cleansing is the Reclaim Oracle, which, as some of you can imagine, I mean, like, look at that, emotional baggage. This is a deck that is used for me for a lot of, like, deep emotional healing. It's also the kind of deck that I feel like has a tendency to just sort of attract and hold the energy that I work with it, that I use, that I attract to it when I'm working with it. I don't know how to put what I'm saying. Basically, I tend to do a lot of emotional stuff with this. There's a lot of intense, I mean, we have grief sitting right on top. There's positive and difficult emotions in here. But what I really notice about this deck is that the energy it just holds it, right? Like there's just a lot of intensity. So of course, this is a deck that I feel like can always benefit from being cleansed regularly. So these are decks that genuinely I feel like could use some cleansing. I'm going to go ahead and put the box away. I will typically cleanse the box, but in this case, I mean, I'm more cleansing this for the demonstration, and I don't work with the box energetically, so I'm not going to agonize about that too much. I'm just going to set the box and the bag aside for both of these decks. So let me talk through, first of all, my favorite and simplest method of cleansing. And this is the one that I do between every client reading, after any reading that I do, period. Typically, if I'm at this table and I've done a reading, I always cleanse with sound. Now, my favorite way to cleanse with sound, and the easiest and most convenient, and in fact, this has been repaired because the top of it has broken off, but this is, I forget what kind of shaker. There's a name for this type. It's woven, and there's a little like skin on the bottom, so it has a very particular sound that I really like. It's very active, but it's not harsh or tinny. I've had other shakers. In fact, I've got one in my drawer. Let me just show you. This is actually a shaker I got that is made, it's actually a baby rattle, and it's made of willow. And I think it's got beans in it, adzuki beans or something. And this has got a much gentler, lower, to me, it's not enough. Like, I want something active, right? This is a little too, it falls a little flat. I like what it's made of. I like the materials. It feels really good energetically that way, but I love a good shaker, and this one has been my favorite. So after I've done a reading of any kind, before I move on to the next reading, even if it's for the same client, I always give this a little zhuzh, okay? So this is a very simple way. And the reason that I feel like this kind of thing works really well for a basic, gentle, like in-between readings, quick and dirty kind of cleansing is that noise in general, if you think about the way sound waves move, if you could picture the noise that this kind of a thing makes, the way it would break up or scatter sticky energies. That's kind of how I think about this kind of thing. So I love this one. If this one ever fully dies, Peggy just wrapped some stuff around the top for me. But if this one ever fully dies, I'll get another one just like it because I love it so much. I actually found this at a World Music store in my area. Love the way this sounds. Love it so much. So anyways, I always have this on my reading table. It's always like right here, accessible. That's a very simple thing I do. And let's talk about one of the most basic ways of cleansing, and that's shuffling. When you shuffle, you're kind of breaking up the energy. And if you shuffle with intent to cleanse and reduce or remove any sticky or clingy energies, then you are in effect cleansing your deck. Another thing that doesn't require any materials that I definitely recommend for cleansing is to put your deck in order. Now with an oracle deck, that's a little trickier. This one I would do alphabetically. I would place it in order, and I would build it back up, put it back into its original order. That's what a lot of people actually will do, is they'll put their decks back in order when they're done using them, and that gives them that sort of sense of having reset or cleansed the deck for its next use. So those are really simple things. I'm going to get my candle actually lit. I've got a white candle here because for cleansing, but I'm going to light this. I don't use matches because the sulfur really irritates Peggy's sinuses, so I typically use a lighter. I love the magic of matches, but it just does not. So I'm going to set that there. So I like a candle that's got a easy to access flame. I often don't do this. I haven't done this kind of candle for a while now because I've been using up some witchy candles I have here. So I have one here that is I got from my local witchy shop called Grimoire. I've been using this with all my videos and such lately, and it's getting quite low. So it's kind of a pain to use to show you what I'm going to do with it, but I do use it in the same way I'm going to use this white candle. But anyway, I'm scattered. Let me get on track here. So I'm going to let the candle burn for a second and do its thing over here in the corner. Okay, so another simple thing you can do, and this again doesn't require a lot, is cleanse your deck with salt. Now, you might not want to put your deck in salt, or you might not even want to do what I'm going to do, but what I like to do is take a little bit of salt, and I keep a small jar of salt for use in witchy purposes, but you can literally just lightly sprinkle your salt right on top of your deck. And then you can let that sit for however long you want to leave it. So salt is a really great natural, it's a good herb, essentially. I don't know if you'd call it an herb, but it's a great cleansing agent. So from an energetic cleansing perspective, salt is considered incredibly purifying and cleansing. Now I need somewhere to put this salt so it's not going to get everywhere because I want to continue to show you. So I would do something like this and then I would leave it sit somewhere for a period of time. Maybe it's overnight, maybe it's for a week, you know, whatever feels good to you. So I'm going to just ditch my salt here. And I wouldn't go crazy on the amounts. The idea is, again, to do it with intention. Okay, so I'm going to set my salt paper aside here. Okay, another great method for cleansing is to use a crystal. So a really classic crystal for cleansing is selenite. Selenite is really inexpensive. Typically, you can find pieces of it. A lot of us will have a piece already. If you have a piece of selenite, you can keep it with your deck or place it on your deck. There are selenite bowls and also selenite plates that you can get that you can literally just set your items on. And selenite is one of those crystals that's said to sort of pull impurities or pull energetic stickiness off of your deck. So you could do that in either case, right? Some people will use them almost like a wand. I actually have a selenite wand somewhere. And you can literally run it over your deck. Imagine you were sort of energetically, like almost like you're brushing your teeth. This is a terrible example, but like almost like you're brushing your teeth, but you're clearing away any energy. And a lot of this methods, the different methods are going to appeal to different people based on what feels real. If you just feel like you're acting something out and it doesn't feel like it has purpose or meaning, in my opinion, it's not as effective as something that feels like it has meaning. One of the reasons that I love sound is because sound has a quality that I know sound waves are a thing. I know that there is a physical quality, a thing, an energetic property that moves. And so that idea that sound can move stuff makes this feel very effective for me from a cleansing perspective if I want to think about things in a more, I hesitate to use the word scientific, but in a more mundane kind of way. So that's something to keep in mind. But selenite's great. Some people will use quartz. And then after you've kind of pulled or cleansed your deck using selenite, it's good to cleanse your selenite. You could run it under, okay, I'm going to give bad advice here. Selenite is water soluble. It's technically not a water safe crystal. I do occasionally run my selenites under a quick little bit of running water just to sort of cleanse them, and then I pat them dry. They're fine that way. Don't submerge these in water, and definitely do not put them in water and then drink that water. These do dissolve in water. They will eventually break down and completely dissolve. Just as a heads up. But I do often rinse them off really quick. That hasn't hurt mine. It may have hurt it and I just haven't noticed. So, you know, caution and all. But you could also just stick this in a little bit of sand. You could even take your sand like this and just stick that in there. Not sand, salt. You could put this in a little bit of salt and then discard the salt. You could actually put this in a little bit of dirt and then wipe it clean when you're done. There's lots of different ways you can cleanse your selenite. But selenite is a great cleanser. Boom. No problem. And some people actually have said that they feel that selenite is a self-cleaning crystal, meaning that you don't have to cleanse the selenite. It pulls the icky energies off of things or the clingy energies off of things, and then it cleans itself. Self-cleaning. Sounds good. I don't know. I don't use selenite a ton, but I like having pieces of it around for quick and simple jobs, or if I want to just cleanse something that I want to walk away from, such as leaving a deck out. Another thing that's really great that doesn't require a lot of, or any accessories, is to leave your decks out in the moonlight. Or some people might like to cleanse or charge their decks in sunlight. Sunlight might feel better. Be aware that light can fade your artwork, obviously, so keep that in mind. But a bath of sunlight, so sitting in a windowsill that gets some light by the full moon, for example, is a wonderful way to charge. And a waning moon might be a wonderful energy to strip away any excess energies you don't want on your cards. So those are pretty simple, quick and dirty ways to cleanse that don't require a whole lot of effort. None of these really require a ton of effort. Another thing that some people will use is smoke. So you might see something like this, like an herbal blend, a herbal bundle that you can light and smoke. Now I got this particular herbal bundle for a very specific purpose, so I'm not going to light it for the demonstration, but I did want you to see it. This is a mugwort and sage bundle that's from local sage from my area. This is something I got for some specific house cleansing that I want to do, but if you have this kind of thing and you like working with this kind of thing, then lighting one of these, blowing the flame out and letting it smolder and smoke, and taking that smoke around and under your decks is a great way to cleanse. So I'm just showing this as one option, but otherwise I'm just leaving it out for something else. The way that I actually cleanse all the time, and I do this before every client reading, and this one is almost done. It's getting low enough that it's getting kind of hard to use, and I've already dropped it and burnt the other end once. But I like to use Palo Santo. Get your Palo Santo ethically sourced. Please, I know that there are issues around Palo Santo. I have been gifted a ton of it. I have a ton of it. I'm not going to put it to waste. I love using this. I don't know if it'll be easy to get ethically sourced Palo Santo once I run out. But there's also lots of things like this that you can use. So I'm not agonizing about it, but I do like the convenience of Palo Santo. It doesn't burn as easily as some other things do. It is wood. So essentially when you're using Palo Santo, and what this little thing is, it's filthy, I'm sorry. This is actually a little matchstick holder that I got in a subscription box a while ago. So I keep mine in that because it's ceramic. So it just sits in there. It's pretty safe. Mine is like literally full of ash and soot and stuff. But what I do is I take my Palo Santo. You can see I'm pretty, I use this all the time. And you just take a flame and you hold it over the flame long enough for the end to light. Now I like to let it actually to see flame on it. And then when I blow it out, you see a little bit of that red glow. Now ashes can fall off of this, so I recommend using it over something. I have put little tiny burn holes in my cloth, much to poor Peggy's chagrin, so be careful. Or you can do have a dish like this or a bowl like this that you hold underneath it. Again, I'm pretty careless myself. Don't do as I do, but I usually just take the whole thing under my cards, over my cards. Now I've been sort of brought up in traditions that teach me that counterclockwise movement is more banishing, whereas clockwise is more drawing in. So when I'm cleansing, I move counterclockwise. It's just sort of instinct. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, but if that feels like resonant for you, then do that. And then I set it back in my little dish, and Palo Santo actually goes out pretty quickly. If I set it here, it'll go out within a few seconds, usually. It's going to make a liar out of me now. I usually just set it and forget it. Like I put it away while I'm doing my reading. Yeah, it's already out pretty much. It's not the kind of thing that once you light it, it will just continue to stay lit, usually, unless you're blowing on it or in some way trying to keep it going. But that's perfect for a quick little hit of cleansing smoke. That's what I love it for. I'm really careful with smoky things here because of Peggy. She's a little more sensitive to smoky things in general. So when I use things like this works really well because I can light it and then put it out pretty quickly. Another thing that people will use is incense. Same thing. You'll get the smoky thing going, right? I have one of these incense burners where you can put your loose incenses on top. And some people have the kind, hold on, let me light this carefully and quickly here. Some people have the kind where you put the charcoal disc down. Again, that's way too much smoke for me. Something like this is great because it will heat up this top plate pretty quickly actually. And then all of this will begin to smoke, but the smoke is it's only a little bit of smoke. Now I have some resin in here that's very melty, so it's just dripping down into the candle below. But same thing, once you get some herbal smoke going, you can just run your cards over the smoke. And especially if you're choosing loose incenses with properties that feel cleansing to you, that's really helpful. I find any smoke feels cleansing when I run my objects through that smoke. Right? So you can do that in any way that feels right for you. I love a nice stationary source of smoke. And then the other situation I have here, again, keep in mind, there's regular incense, like stick incense, that works beautifully. My incense situations, I only burn stick incense in my bathroom where I have a fan. because it bothers Peggy, but I can get away with smaller bits of incense. So here's some little goodies that I have that work great for this. So these little incense matches are perfect for a quick little hit of incense. So those are great because they burn very quickly. I really like these. So these are rope incense. Now, I don't use them properly. I don't need to put my hand there anymore because my camera doesn't need that, which is awesome. Anyways, what I've done is I've actually cut these in half. They're typically twice this long and they have a little loop and you can hang them from special burner things. I've never done that. What I do is I cut them in half. I'll light the end of it. Let's bring my camera on here. And these are great because they're so little, I just get them going so you have a little bit, I don't have to hold my hand up. It's great. Anyways, because you have a little bit of an ember glowing there, I have this sweet little, it's called a smudging bowl. That was what it was called when I purchased it. But it's just got this little bowl and I just stick my little rope incense in there, make sure that it's got a little bit of air. And it usually will just kind of do its thing. But as you can see, it only produces a little bit of smoke at a time. So again, I can take my cards and run it through. And I don't even know if you can see the wisp of smoke. It's so small. Hopefully you can see it on camera. It just kind of pools in the bowl and kind of spills up and over. It's not a lot. There, you can probably see it right there. It's very little. So I like light, low smoking kind of things. That's just my preference. But you can go as smoky as you want. Smoke cleansing is a great method of cleansing. The other thing that you can do if you don't want to cleanse with anything smoky or use fire of any kind, which totally makes sense, you can herb cleanse. Now, herbs are also a really great way to charge a deck. So for this, I'm going to focus on this one because I know this one will work for this particular herbal blend. I have an herb blend that I made myself. This was all part of a big magical working that I did. And this is very much a very specific personal growth, shadow work, self-improvement kind of blend. It's the stuff that helps me become aware of my own personal patterns, work on them, that kind of thing. So with this, it's kind of a combination, for me, it feels very much like a combination of cleansing, but also sort of resetting and charging it with my intended purpose. So having a specific single herb or an herb blend that you can use for this is wonderful. So just like with the salt, I would, with intention, add the herbs to my deck. And this is where you can mix and match these methods. You can do this and a little sprinkle of salt and then place your selenite. And it's beautiful, right? It's a great little simple witchy practice, or magical practice. I shouldn't say witchy because not all of y'all are witches. I get it. But you can do this as a simple way to cleanse, to charge, to do it all at once. And it's so simple. It's so simple. A lot of this is about using things where you can really bring intention to it, right? Where you can really be conscious about what you're doing and why you're doing it. So things like specialized or personally made herb blends are great for that for me. So I'm going to set this actually to the side because I think that's a wonderful thing to do with that deck. And we're going to consider that one done. And we're going to work on the Celtic Wisdom. So I talked about sound being a really great cleansing, and I showed this little shaker. But there's other really fun ways to work with sound to cleanse your decks too. And this is just a fun excuse to play with those. So I'm going to show those. There are bells. So for example, I have this sweet little chime set. This came in a witchy box. I'm pretty sure it was like a witch's roots box. But something like this, you can dangle your bells over your deck. You might have a single bell that you can ding over your deck. But bells and chimes and things like that are great for breaking up any sticky energy. I love this particular kind of bell. I don't know what these are called. I've been using this particular set. This one is dusty because I haven't used this one in a while. But this is the specific bell I used to take around to my yoga classes. So let's just see what this one sounds like. And this one's really great because it holds its sound for a really long time and it's minimal effort. You just hold it up here by the cord so that nothing's touching it and you just ding it together very gently. Until it eventually fades away. And that is a lovely deck cleansing process. This is so simple. These aren't terribly expensive. Again, you can find these at metaphysical shops. Sometimes you can find them at like yoga shops and things like that. I'm very sorry I don't know the name of this. If somebody knows the name of it, please feel free to leave it down below. I've literally had this set for years and years. And this is how I would always close my yoga classes after Shavasana. So really, really love these, but I don't know the name. Tibetan bells, I think is what I used to call them, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. And just a little check in on our incense, just so you can see what's happening. It's a little bit smokier now, but it's part way up. So another thing you can do is, well, I'm just going to show you all this is just show and tell now, basically, but I have this little thumb. I mean, I don't really know what I'm doing. I have a bigger one of these as well. These are great because they're already tuned to all harmonize together, so you don't have to really know what you're doing, and it sounds really lovely. So you can just like focus on what the deck is for or what you want to cleanse it of as you make noise with this. And of course, you can do the same thing with a singing bowl, if you've ever seen these. Now, there's some really neat things you can do with singing bowls if your deck is small enough. I don't think the deck I have to show you here is small enough. I have a bigger singing bowl here. But sometimes you can actually get away with putting your deck inside. I will try it with this bigger one and we'll see, but I think it's going to touch the sides too much. Okay, so it's too big. It's going to touch the sides, so you can't do that. But if it's a smaller one, if it doesn't touch the sides of the bowl, you can put it in the bottom here. But usually what I do, and I've got two different thingies, is this is one of my favorites. It's got a really clear tone. So a singing bowl right over top of your deck. And you can also hold your deck over the bowl as it's vibrating. Once you've gotten it going and it's singing, just like with the Tibetan bell, same kind of thing. So that's a really nice way to cleanse as well if you like the idea of working with sound. Okay, so my incense has actually completely finished now. It didn't take long. So anyways, some people will like to do a bit of earth, air, fire, water. So you can do something like that as simply as just holding those things that represent those elements over the cards or around the cards. So you wouldn't take your cards over flame, for example, but you could take a candle like this and move it over your cards like that. And the same thing with a bowl of water, a bowl of salt, and then run it through a little bit of smoke. Some people love elemental cleansing in that way. But I think that covers it. I don't think I left any of my personal preferred methods out. But I really just, most of the time, my cleansing is as simple as done, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. And just to bring it back to the point of all of this, you also don't have to do it at all. If it feels like a useful practice, then do it. And if it doesn't feel useful, don't do it. You can try it and not be committed to continuing to do it too, which is something else to point out. I think a lot of times we feel like once we are in it, we're like in it, and you're not. You're not at all. So feel free to experiment, do what works for you. I like having some sort of small ritual to break up some of that energy generally. That's what this is for. And then I only pull out this other stuff when I feel like I really want or need that for something in particular. Now, I will regularly toss a few special decks under the moonlight or do a quick smoke cleansing. Like I said, I do that all the time, and I do the shaker all of the time. But this other stuff, only when it makes sense, right? With a deck like Reclaim, this kind of thing to do with the herbs, the salt, the selenite, that makes sense because this is a deck that I do a lot of heavy work with. But I wouldn't feel that this is necessary for every deck by any stretch of the imagination. And you might find, having watched this video, that there are certain methods like this that feel like they'd work really well for you, and others that are like, no, why would I do that? And that's completely fine. That's completely fine. All of this kind of supposes that you might enjoy or want to do some kind of cleansing with your deck. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you some things to consider, maybe trying for yourself and playing around with how you feel in general, maybe even just doing some journaling around how you feel in general about energy when it comes to your decks. Do you feel like decks hold energy, that they retain it, that they need to be cleansed sometimes? Do you feel like charging a deck makes sense and imbuing it with the focus or energy that you want it to have? In what way do you feel like energetic principles might apply to your deck? And just spending some time, even just figuring out how you feel about these things, can really help deepen your practice, because then you have formed an opinion. You've taken the time to consider what that means for you and formed an opinion. And based on that, how you can decide what, if anything, you want to do to alter your practice or to add something to your practice. And that's kind of the point of this Magic of Divination series, is just to introduce some ideas, some concepts that you might want to play with. But in any case, thank you so much for joining me yet again. I really enjoy doing these videos. I really enjoy talking about some of this magical stuff. And I like having a little bit of woo, as you know, in my practice. And this is just one of the things that I really enjoy being able to do and that I've come to rely on as a way of working with my cards. Just, again, the simple cleansing. So thank you so much. And don't forget, I do have a channel membership here. If you're interested in even more content from me, you can learn more about that by clicking on the join button down below or the link in the description box if you're on a different device. I know sometimes iPhones, I think, have some trouble. I think it's getting fixed now. But if you do have trouble, feel free to go to my channel homepage. You should find the join button there, even if you don't find it on this video. In any case, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And until next time, may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye.